Kawa fricka dude, and welcome back to the PTQ podcast, season 1, episode 1. So excited to be back. That 2-week break felt really long, honestly. Glad to be able to, come in here and yap again and really speak my mind, because boy, have things been brewing recently, and school's picking up, and my training's been going crazy, and it's just a lot of stuff. So I'm glad to have this outlet today, and here we are, beginning of the mainline content. I've been talking about this for a while now, and we're into it. So no more experimental episodes, no more whatever those last 4 episodes were. I mean, they were great. They were, all things considered, they went pretty well, but there's structure now. So I have a plan, and today's the beginning of that plan. So like I said before, this is going to span from February all the way until December. We're going to have 3 seasons of content, 8 episodes each, and they're going to come in duos. So episode 1 is going to be me. Episode 2, if I stick to how I plan for this to be, will be me with a guest speaker. Therefore, once a month you'll have a monologue episode, and once a month you'll have a guest speaker kind of discussion episode. So, season 1, that's today, beginning today, perception. Season 2 is going to be action. Season 3, will, or willpower. So, here we are in the first season, and we're going to be talking all about perception. And specifically, today, our topic is going to be clarity. So this episode and next episode, clarity, 1 and 2. So let's get right into it. Like I always say, open up your minds, open up your hearts, open up your ears. Just pay attention and do some thinking, all right? If you haven't done thinking today, think now. We're going to start thinking. Let's get into it. Woo! All right, so I'm going to be doing a lot of quoting, specifically of Stoic philosophers throughout this series, this whole entire mainline content. If you need reading materials, I've got one that is, I would say, required, The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday. You're going to notice very quickly, if you have that book, that I'm following in suit with everything that goes on in there, all the topics. I might have even sort of stolen season and episode titles from the book, but that's okay, because I'm talking about my own stuff here. Shout out Ryan Holiday. Thanks for the ideas. Anyway, let's start by talking about how do we find clarity. First of all, like what does clarity even stem from? It could stem from a lot of different things. I mean, depending on the person, not everyone has their same path to clarity, but something that will apply to everyone is understanding control and choice. So right off the bat, gonna drop a pretty deep quote here. So Epictetus says in his Discourses book, "The chief task in life is simply this, to identify and separate matters so that I can say clearly to myself which are externals not under my control and which have to do with the choices I actually control. Where then do I look for good and evil? Not to uncontrollable externals, but within myself, to the choices that are my own." So, the single most important practice in Stoic philosophy is differentiating between what we can change and what we can't. And I've mentioned this a couple times before in previous episodes, kind of just touched on it, the idea of only worry about what's in your control. So, you get your flight's delayed, you're at the airport, and you start yelling at the airline representative, causing a big commotion, and, "Oh, I'm so mad, and now I'm going to be late, and it's all your fault, and this airline sucks. I'm never flying Delta again." And what does that do? What all you're doing is just taking your energy that you didn't have to go and project and all over someone else, just spewing it all over them and making it their problem. They can't do anything about it. You think the airline attendant can magically undelay the flight? No, they can't. So why go and yell at them? Or, you're up to bat and you strike out looking. 1, 2, 3, gone, you're out. You just wasted your at bat. Well, instead of going in the dugout and being a little sissy baby and throwing your helmet and slamming your bat, making a whole scene in front of your teammates, why don't you go in there and think about why you sat there and watched a perfect fastball come down the middle without swinging? It's the idea of not projecting your thoughts without first thinking about them, but then also understanding, if it was in your control, okay. If it wasn't, why are we stressing about it? So maybe, looking on a 0-2 count and letting a fastball come down the middle, maybe that is your fault. Maybe you should have swung. But let's say it was a really nasty, nasty curveball. I mean, that pitcher went all in and gave you his worst, and you swung for the fences and you missed. You tried. It's not your fault that the pitcher threw a freaking nasty curveball. You couldn't have expected that, but you tried. So go in the dugout and put your glove on and get ready for the next inning. It's actually, what? I want to give an example here. I'm gonna start off by saying go Birds. Big Philadelphia Eagles fan here. And throughout my time watching them, they've had a lot of different quarterbacks, a lot of decent ones, a lot of sucky ones, Carson Wentz. But they've had a really, really good one recently, Jalen Hurts. And what I really love about Jalen Hurts is that the man's got integrity and he's the same all the time. Like you never see this man break character. And at first I thought it was all kind of like a show he was putting on. No. This guy is all serious, he's all business, and he doesn't let externals affect him. He is the definition of a stoic if you watch him play football. And one of the main reasons I say this is because you can immediately tell the character of a sports player when they make a mistake and you see their immediate reaction to that mistake. So, a lot of quarterbacks they'll throw an interception and they just throw a fit and they're on the ground and they're slamming the turf and, acting like the world just ended. They come on, sit on the bench and they're yelling at their teammates. They're pointing fingers, assigning blame. But no, you look at Jalen Hurts, and what I really like about him is, yeah, he's thrown his fair share of interceptions, and he's fumbled the ball a lot. He's kind of becoming famous for that, honestly, with the tush push. But anyway, he walks over, sits on the bench, and the very next time you see the camera on him, he's watching film and he's trying to understand why that happened. He's not assigning blame. In fact, the only blame he assigns is to himself, even if it's not his fault. Because there's sometimes a quarterback gets picked off. It's not the quarterback's fault. Maybe someone tipped the ball or, a variety of different things can happen in these situations. But the point is, he immediately takes accountability, sits down, and starts reviewing film to understand one, why did that happen? And two, how can that not happen again? That's accountability and that's control and choice. So instead of freaking out, he chose to keep his composure and sit down and address it instead of projecting it. Instead of yelling at his teammate, "Oh, why weren't you open?" or "Why'd you get cut off by that corner?" That's not what he does. And that's a very good example of how to keep your composure and how to make those in the moment decisions on, okay, what's in my control, what's not, and what are we going to stress over and what are we not. So, and this is true for us today. If we can focus on making clear what parts of our day are within our control and what parts are not, we're going to be happier. And we're going to have a distinct advantage over people who fail to realize these things and they just fight an unwinnable battle. Those people, you have people in your life like that. I mean, maybe it's you. Maybe you understand it's you. And maybe that's why you're listening to this. But if you know that person or those people who you feel are always taking one step forward to take two steps back, and they're just fighting and fighting and fighting, like fighting against the nature of the world, you're not going to get anywhere in that battle. So instead of trying to fight things that are beyond your control that you never could, I mean, waste thought all day on it. You can't go back in the past and change things. So why not take that, alter your perception? Season 1 perception. We're going to be doing a lot of trying to change perception here because really at the core of everything, you can make your life much happier and much more put together, just peaceful. If you can simply take an event and change your perception of it, it's a very easy practice. And once you start doing it, you get really used to doing it. So instead of looking at things as like, how did I screw up? Look at things as, how can I get better? Really simple concept, but something that we just simply don't think about in the moment because we're so fed up with emotion and passion and, just anger about what happened. We'll take a moment and turn it into a lesson. So think, control your choices. What are your intentions with my daughter? Have you heard that question before, gentlemen? Well, it's an important question, and we can expand that and make it an important question for everything we do. What are your intentions with my soul, with my life, with my future? These are questions you can ask yourself that have nothing to do with someone's daughter. So let all your efforts be directed to something. Let it keep that end in view. It's not activity that disturbs people, but false conceptions of things that drive them mad. That's Seneca on tranquility of mind. So having an end in mind is no guarantee that you're going to reach it. No one would ever make that bold of a claim. Just simply understanding your end does not mean that you're going to arrive there, but not having an end in mind will absolutely guarantee that you will not reach that goal or not reach that end point because it's not defined. When you Actually, I'm going to use an example from today. I was talking to a friend and we're talking about races and how excited it makes you when you kind of like sign up for something and get your foot in the door and full commit. Because at that point, it's like you sign up for the race or you sign up for X, event that you have to train for, whatever it might be. Your endpoint is defined now. You have a date, you have a time, you have a completely laid out, defined task of what exactly you are going to have to do and when. And now it's your job to prepare yourself for that moment. But a lot of people try to take it in reverse. And we get this idea of, well, I'm not going to register for the race until I'm ready for it because, like, I don't want to embarrass myself or get to race day and realize, oh, I didn't prepare well enough. Well, the problem with that is that we can continue to layer excuses and push time backward. And next thing you know, your endpoint isn't defined, so it's never met. Or maybe you try to meet it at a point where it's not ready to be met yet. So when your efforts are not directed at a cause or purpose, how will you know what to do day in and day out? How will you know how to structure your day if you don't have a timeline? Because when we're not given timelines and we're told, I mean, have you ever been told by a boss or whoever it is that you're working for or working with, like, hey, just get it to me whenever you can? What good does that do for the person who was assigned the task? Because I mean, I look at it two ways. Like maybe one is like they genuinely don't care, and it's just like, hey, like this isn't like that does not come across as urgent to me when someone says get it to me when you can. So I'm not going to put that on the top of my priority list if I have other things going on. So right away, we don't have urgency. We don't have passion behind the task. So like, of course, it's not going to get my greatest, utmost, attentive, quick effort. And then on the contrary, we get this kind of perception of, oh, well, maybe they're being like passive aggressive and they actually want me to do it fast, but they're just trying to, oh, don't worry, like take your time, but get it to me when you can. Because you hear that from bosses and you're like, no way they mean that. And then now you feel even more pressure to get it done, but you weren't actually handed a deadline. So now everything's just a big storm and you're like, oh my God, what do I do? Define endpoints, define timelines. Timelines are everything. Doesn't mean you have to follow it to a T, but have a plan laid out. What I really like to do is plan out my weeks. So I know some of you like chronic planners need everything on like a paper of every hour of every day. And that's fine if that keeps you productive. For me, it would just drive me freaking insane. So I just plan out by weeks. And I don't necessarily write it down every time. Maybe I should because it would, put it in front of me, make me look at it a lot. But in my head, at the beginning of a week, I understand what my general responsibilities are for that week. And I produce a timeline in my head of well, first, let's sort out priority of tasks. What needs to get accomplished first? What can be put off a little bit, not suffer any consequences. Get that priority list settled. Next, block out time. Understand like where and what day am I going to have the time to do this? Like if on Tuesday I have the entire morning open, maybe I should save that for a more demanding task than maybe that time on Wednesday that opens up some weeks and doesn't. Like, you know what I'm saying. So the thing is, if you don't do that pre-planning phase, if you don't create that timeline and have that intention, clarifying your intention, then you're allowing yourself the ability for those days to come, for Thursday morning to come. And you didn't clarify what you were doing on Thursday. You just said that you were going to be productive that week. And you wake up at, 6, 7 a.m. or whatever. You got up early like you said you were going to do. But the problem with waking up early with no immediate task to be done when you're awake is that you're allowing that moment in bed to sit there and be like, well, why am I awake right now? Like, is it actually going to hurt if I take another hour or two of sleep? Because you didn't define anything. You didn't clarify your intention for why you were even awake at that time. So, of course, like, your brain is going to offer up that excuse of, let's go back to bed. You're really sore, Nate. Let's get another hour of sleep. You need to recover better because I didn't say what I was going to do. But on the mornings or I'm sorry, on the nights before, when I'm like, you're waking up at 6 a.m. because, and you actually put a because behind the what we're doing, then you wake up already. The first thing on your mind when you wake up is like, oh shit, that thing I said I was going to do, I'm awake for the time I said I was going to do. Let's get to it. Let's get to it. Because for me, that's what got me running. It was like, on the contrary, that's what got me waking up early was running. It was waking up and realizing if I do not do this right now, there's no point in the day where this is going to get done. So I'm going to do it right now. I'm going to hate it, but I'm going to do it right now. And through the process of running early in the morning, it actually got me to appreciate and enjoy waking up early because there was intention. I clarified my intention. So my perception of getting up early changed from just like you see all these YouTube how to make $100,000 a year, how to get into an entrepreneur mindset, and they always talk about waking up early. But then you see them wake up early and they're just, exfoliating their face and drinking coffee somehow for 2 hours with no responsibility. It's like that doesn't help people. What helps people is putting actual intention and tasks behind that structured schedule. You need a why. You can't just keep giving yourself like what's without whys. So start clarifying those whys. Clarify your intentions. Be intentional about everything that you do, everything that you think about, everything you say, everything you do. Now, here's a good one. I love this one. The image of the Zen philosopher and the monk up in the green quiet hills or some nice beautiful temple on a rocky cliff. The Stoics are literally the opposite of this idea of peace and Zen. No, they're the man in the marketplace, or like the sculptor in their studio, or the person just wandering around in everyday life. That's the Stoic, not the person who is put in the most ideal, perfect environment to exhibit qualities of stoicism. It's the person who is in quite the opposite in all the environments that drive us up a wall. And you'll find stoics in you want to find a stoic, go to an amusement park in the most sought after ride in the longest line possible and find the person who's just standing there expressionless staring at a wall. That's a stoic. Or they're just literally so aggravated that they lost the ability to express emotion. But the point is, um serenity and stability are results of your choice and judgment, not your environment. And this is why I really not dislike, but I would love to counter people that always talk about how going on vacations is going to heal this low point in their life, or going, oh, I'm taking a trip to the mountains and it's going to be so peaceful and relaxing and I'm going to just come back so refreshed and back baseline, everything's going to be good. My life's in shambles right now, but since I'm going to the Appalachian Mountains for 7 days, everything will be fixed certainly by sitting out there in my Airbnb cabin and looking at nature just to come back to the same problems and the same routines and the same bad habits. So the point I'm getting at here is your problems are going to follow you wherever you run and hide. If you seek to avoid your disruptions to tranquility, like other people and externals, outside events, stress, you're not going to succeed in this like hide and seek game. They will always find you. Your problems will always come back to you if you're doing things that resemble hiding from them or escaping them instead of addressing them. And if you seek to avoid the disruptive judgments that cause these problems, you'll be stable. So, how do we avoid, and keyword there is harmful and disruptive judgments, not events, judgments, because I'm going to hammer this in a million times on this show, but this is something that has been so crucial for me in changing my perception of everything, is understanding that events do not cause any immediate reaction or stressors in your body. It is your judgment of them that send you up a wall. Your anxiety that you're dealing with, that anxiety did not stem from the event that occurred. It stemmed from the reaction and your judgment and perception of the event that led to heightened emotions in your body. That is literally how the body works on a physiological level. You know, like right now, if half of the recording studio exploded and I went flying at the wall or whatever and stood up, like, you know, the room exploding did not make me upset and freak out and never want to come record a podcast again. It was my reaction to the room exploding. It was me thinking, well, now the room's going to explode every time I come here, so I'm not going to freaking record the podcast in this room, So it's your judgment. And maybe it's something much less extreme than that, but in anything that happens during your day, you're taking an event and you're applying, past experiences, emotion, literally any culmination of what makes you you and what makes your mind you, and you're taking all that and dumping it onto the event and twisting it, molding it around, stirring the pot, and out pops the new problem that's going to weigh on you for a long time, and you're always going to turn to that event and point fingers and blame it. That's what ruined my life. That person is what ruined my life. That thing, that event is what ever since that day I've been, blah 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 blah. No. It's not it could have not been ever since that day, because if right after what had happened, you adjusted your perception and looked at it a different way and walked away from it unscathed, because you have the ability as a human to do that, to alter your perception and walk away from something unharmed and unaffected, you're choosing your own suffering. You know, you are allowing yourself to feel these things and to suffer from these things when there is literally a choice to not do that. There's a choice to look at any event that happens in your life and perceive it differently. But for some reason, as humans, we like to perceive the thing that, well, maybe not even for some reason, it's a pretty obvious reason. We like to perceive things that don't weigh on our mind heavily. We love to point fingers and assign blame. We love to not feel like things were our fault. We love to feel like a victim and feel like the world is out to get us. That's pretty much where our mind goes anytime something happens to us. Is like, you always hear people saying like, "Oh, the world's out to get me. Like, I just have terrible luck and everything always goes wrong for me." And well, what if you looked at it differently? What if you're just going through trials and tribulations to be a better person? Maybe that doesn't work for some people. Maybe that's that kind of like idealistic optimism logic. It's, I get some people don't really roll with that. But really, at the end of the day, if your main problem is that you're always pessimistic and upset, why don't you start looking at how you're perceiving events and allowing them to affect you long after that actually happens? Because for me, and this is just me, I could be wrong, but I don't really like being beaten up and upset and distracted by things that happen weeks, months later. Like, why? To me, I just asked the simple question of like, why? Why do I deserve to feel that way? Why should I feel that way? And most importantly, does this help me in any way, shape, or form? Does this make my day better? Does it make my day easier? Does it do any good for me other than provide me a bunch of thoughts of external events and things to ponder and worry about that will get me nowhere? It's like an endless circle. I'm so upset that this happened because I think this way of it, but I'm not going to change the way I think of it. I'm just going to keep being upset about it over and over and over and allowing it to flood my mind. No, we're not doing that anymore. We are not doing that anymore. Know your circle of control. Epictetus, again, we control our reason, choice, and all acts that depend on that moral will. What's not under our control are the body and any of its parts, our possessions, parents, siblings, children, or country, anything with which we might associate. So, a wise person knows what's inside their circle of control and what is outside of it. And the good news is, what's inside of your control is pretty easy to remember. It's your mind. That's literally it. Even your physical body is not completely within the circle of your control because, like right now, someone could open the door to the studio, stab me in the gut 13 times, and then leave me to bleed out on the floor. You could be traveling to another country and get in trouble and thrown in jail. There goes your freedom. The concept here is that we were given a very easy task in this world, and that's to control your mind and understand how to bend your mind to change your perception when you are not perceiving things in a way that is beneficial to you. We're conscious beings with the ability to perceive everything around us however we want to. And I think that a lot of the times we underestimate that ability or don't actually understand how important that is as a living organism to have the ability to experience something and then make our own perception about that experience. It can be our biggest tool or our biggest downfall. So start making it your tool, because my life changed drastically when every single thing that happened to me that I would previously interpret as the world is out to get me, so and so hates me and did this because they want me to suffer. Maybe no, because everyone looks out for their own best interest. That's just a fact. And unfortunately for you and for me and for everyone in this world, your best interest is not aligned with everyone else's best interest. So if you're thinking that everyone is out to get you and what they do, and that people are always taking personal shots at you, that's a selfish thought, because you're assuming that these people are considering you and their calculations on what they do with their life. They're probably not. I hate to break it to you. But, when people do things that are not a direct shot or insult at you that you perceive as like, oh, that person totally did that to piss me off, or that person saw me signal, but they turned into my parking spot anyway. It's not your parking spot. It's not their parking spot. And to be quite honest, they probably didn't give a shit that you didn't get the spot because they were going to be late to class too. They were looking out for their best interest. So stop pointing fingers, stop assigning blame. Understand that everyone is here to look out for themselves. So control that one thing that you can control, your mind. Control your mind. You have the ability to do it. You've got one thing to manage. Your choice is your will, your mind, so mind it. Mind your mind. I want to touch on a topic that I feel is very reinforced constantly throughout our adolescent lives and really has no consequences then for the most part. But as you get older, if you maintain these habits, these thoughts, these ideals, it's not going to go well for you. It starts to become quite serious. So, do you remember like when you're little, always being afraid to try to do something, you fear you might fail at it, people are going to make fun of you, you don't want to make a fool out of yourself. So, we all choose as kids to just not exert ourselves and not try in place of potentially embarrassing ourselves, humiliating ourselves. We would rather not even attempt something than not be humiliated by trying to get better at it. Because, if you screw up, kids are, oh, I wasn't trying. It doesn't matter. It's just a game. I wasn't even trying. Well, they were. And it was pretty obvious they were. And they were literally like sweating, in the forward head posture, like playing that video game like their life depended on it. But God forbid they lose. And they're telling all their friends, yeah, I wasn't trying. And then maybe they lose so many times that they actually stop trying so they don't have to face the consequences of it anymore. Because then they can just keep using that excuse of, I wasn't trying. Well, I would have beaten you if I tried. Well, that's stupid logic because as we get older, failure is not so inconsequential anymore. It's not just some arbitrary grade anymore or like a participation sports trophy. Like the quality of your life is impacted by the way that you actually exert yourself and allow the potential for this humiliation of failure. And I've said this before and I'll say it a million times. There's no such thing as failure as long as you continue to try. Failure occurs when you completely abandon the task at hand because of that fear of humiliation. Failure is turning off the video game and telling your friends that you're not playing anymore because it's just not fun, but really you're just sad that you keep losing. That's failure. You stop trying. You can't be intimidated by the process, the real work. Don't allow yourself to be scared out of growth because the most important moments in our life are where we are getting backed into the corner, absolutely beaten, senseless, jab, jab, hook jab, uppercut, liver shot, and you feel like you're about to cry and scream and puke all at the same time. And those moments in your life are the ones where you need to get your ass up and keep trying. Reboot the real work. And if you get intimidated and you walk away from these tasks, you're reinforcing that idea of it's okay to make excuses. It's okay to back down to the challenge. It's okay to just tell people, "Oh, I wasn't trying," or "This doesn't interest me, so that's why I'm not good at it." Not because I'm applying myself and going through the natural process of becoming better at something that involves failure after failure after failure. You should be failing. You should experience failure, but you are not a failure of a person. You have to fail. You have to keep failing over and over and over to understand what a win is. Because you simply cannot become good at something without understanding every single way that you cannot do that thing. And I really do think that's how I look at it. If you want to talk about perception, that's how I perceive things. If you want to be the best at something, my logic says you have to know every single way to do it that is not the best way. Because um, research pretty much shows in any topic ever that if there are unexplored areas of that research, there is a potential better way to be doing things. So wouldn't you be glad? Wouldn't you be happy that you're doing that research, that experimentation to understand route A doesn't work, route B doesn't work, route C doesn't work, route D doesn't work, all the way down the line until you find one that does work and works enough for you to be the best at what you're doing. So you did the work. You're the pioneer of that method. You ever notice how when we try to take other people's methods and use them, it doesn't necessarily work like the way that we perceive it working for them, and then you sit there scratching your head like, well, I don't get it. I bought the Jula Ben John's Hyperion most expensive paddle on the market that the best player in the world uses. Why am I not playing up to par with the best pickleball player in the world? Um, this just happened in my life. The answer is other people's methods aren't the optimal method for you. Just because an item makes someone good at a sport, or you slap a professional athlete's name on a baseball bat or a pickleball paddle or something, picking up that paddle or that bat and using it is not going to make you that person and give you that person's skill set. They grinded for who knows how long and tested all those alternate routes. They already did the work. You haven't. You tried to skip that whole step and just go to the finish line of like, well, I'm just going to replicate them without actually learning. Nah, no, you have to learn because there are multiple working routes. That's the core lesson I'm going at here is that maybe route B and route F and route X are all reasonable options, but route B for John Smith is fantastic and it's only mediocre for you. But route X for you, man, that thing is, I mean, no one's beating you when you use route X. So, yes, there may be many, many, many routes that for everyone will simply not work that are just bad ideas, like putting your head in an alligator's mouth to see whether or not it bites down. That's probably a failure of a route for everybody in the entire world. But there are going to be multiple routes that will lead you to success, and you have to put in the work and test which ones are going to lead you to the most success. So that's all going to come from failure because you can't filter down to those like small choices, those handful of routes that work for you until you fail at all the other ones. Because you literally don't know if those other options, those alternative strategies don't work for you until you fail repeatedly over and over and over. So reboot that real work. Ditch that stupid concept that like, yeah, oh, well, I'm just not going to try because I'd rather not deal with humiliation. Brother, sister, you are not humiliating yourself, okay? Anyone who watches you fail and laughs at you or anything, who cares? Because the chances are they're not even doing the work themselves. Someone who does that work themselves and knows what it takes to be the best will not laugh at you, but instead bring you up, pull you up, and understand, wow, yeah, they're doing what needs to be done. Winners recognize winners, and winners come from fails. You have to fail. So who cares if someone laughs at you? Okay? Who cares if someone comes up and tells you, wow, you're the worst pickleball player I've ever seen in my entire life? That's their perception. Maybe yours doesn't align. It shouldn't align. You should believe in yourself. So don't let external perceptions fade your own and your own belief in yourself. So for you realists now, you anti-optimists that need to hear things how they are. You're in a slump. Let's keep it real. You're in a slump. You're having a bad time. You've had a rough couple weeks, months, maybe even a year. You're in a really rough patch. And you just feel like, how am I going to get back to that person I was? Or how am I going to become the person I want to be when I can't even get myself out of bed to do basic, simple tasks? Like, how am I going to become this David Goggins champion mentality if I can't even make myself breakfast on a regular basis? Well, let me read you a very good quote by Marcus Aurelius in Meditations. Your principles can't be extinguished unless you snuff out the thoughts that feed them, for it is continually in your power to reignite new ones. It's possible to start living again. See things anew as you once did. That is how to restart your life. Yeah, you can reignite things whenever you want. So if you've been drifting away from the principles and those beliefs that you hold dear, well, they're still there. You're not drifting away from those things. You're simply not applying them anymore. So they're starting to feel a little foreign. They're still up there in your head, and there's still those driving forces in your life. And the reason why you feel so asleep and feel so dead and feel like your life isn't such a whole is because that fire is kind of going out. You haven't tended to the fire for a while. You haven't dumped any, lighter fluid on it in a really long time, and it's pretty dull. And you're starting to not recognize it anymore and recognize it as that thing that drives you because you just haven't applied it. You don't know what it feels like anymore to fuel that fire and to reap the benefits of what happens when you do feel the fire. So let's talk about some tasks of reigniting your fire, reigniting your thoughts and your passion, and getting that perception back in line with where it should be. So, first one, are you assessing your life properly? Are you actually assessing day by day what happens in your life? Do you have a morning ritual? Do you do anything regularly that would be considered a reflective practice? Whether it's literally just for 1 minute thinking about maybe analyzing your thoughts that day and understanding where they come from. You don't need to answer the deep questions. Just understand, okay, I feel this way. Why do I feel this way? If you do that every day, you're going to start understanding yourself a lot better. But what I really like is a day in review. So here's another quote. I'm going to drop a lot of these this episode here. Seneca from Moral Letters. I will keep constant watch over myself, and most usefully will put each day up for review. For this is what makes us evil, that none of us looks back upon our own lives. We reflect upon only that which we are about to do, and yet our plans for the future descend from the past. So if you're always looking forward without looking back, this is why it's important to understand history, because it kind of paints a picture of everything that's going to happen moving forward. Um, if you're not reflecting and you're not reviewing what you're actually doing in your life, how are you going to better yourself? If you don't even understand what's already going on in your life and you don't have like a written or at least spoken review of what it is that you've exactly been up to, it's not possible to draw the conclusions of the whys of like, why isn't this working? Why am I not getting closer to this goal? Why is this task not being accomplished? Why am I unable to perform up to my standards? All those answers will most likely be answered, and honestly, I would go as far to say as all of them would be answered if you simply start doing a day in review every day of your life. Sit down at the end of your day and write out all the things that you did, that you felt you succeeded in, that you felt you failed in, uh, empty broken promises to yourself, fulfilled promises to yourself. I mean everything. Look at the minute details. Did you wake up at 6 like you said you would, or did you snooze and wake up at 6:05? Because regardless of that being close to 6, that's still not what you said you were gonna do. Um, did you read 3 chapters of the book you said you were gonna read, or did you read 2 and then say, "I'll read an extra one the next day"? Because that's not what you said you were gonna do. You know, everything. I mean everything. Review your day. And maybe keep your own journal, whether it's in, like, a computer or a little notebook. For me, I've actually been using there's a really cool function. I'm not sure if it just popped up in recent iOS, but Apple will frequently ask me like on a daily basis to reflect on my thoughts. I'll get a little notification, and you guys can into this if you want to. I'm not sure the details on it or when it started, but it allows you to journal. Basically, you pick like a feeling, an emotion, or something in that point in time, and then you write a little journal entry into like why you feel that way, what happened in your day, that kind of thing. And it's made me very self-aware of what is evoking certain emotions. And I go back and I read through my thought journal for each day, and you see trends. You start to understand trends. You understand when and why you're happy and when and why you're not happy, and things you're not fulfilling for yourself, and understanding the implications that has on you and your day-to-day life and your quality of life, your quality of thoughts. So I find that very important. Another thing, a very important thing, what's your mantra? Because there's power in a mantra, right? So, boom, quote time again. Marcus Aurelius in Meditation says, erase the false impressions from your mind by constantly saying to yourself, I have it in my soul to keep out any evil, desire, or any kind of disturbance. Instead, seeing the true nature of things, I will give them only their due. Always remember this power that nature gave you. So, Marcus, he said, you know what? Screw it. I have it in my soul to keep out any evil, or desire, or disturbance. I'm just going to see things how they are. That's what he's saying. That was his mantra, was like, brush aside the externals. I'm going to see things for how they are. I'm going to perceive things in a way that is beneficial to me and doesn't waste any time or any unnecessary thoughts. So, what is your mantra? Do you even have a mantra? Do you have something that you say? Maybe it sounds silly, but do you have something that you say to yourself when you're in a hard time? Or when you're facing a hardship or you're not feeling like yourself that day, do you have that phrase? And don't make it someone else's phrase. Make it your phrase. Like, I'm not going to hand you a mantra. I'm not even going to say one because I don't want you to associate mantra with whatever I say. Come up with your own. I'm going to give you a task. All right. And I'm going to check in 2 weeks from now on the next podcast to see if you guys did it. But make your mantra. dig deep, really dig deep and assess yourself. Homework. You've got homework. After you listen to this podcast, I want you to start journaling at least your thoughts, maybe your actions too, hopefully both. Reflect on your day. Do a day in review every day for the next 2 weeks. Promise yourself that. Promise yourself that you're going to do that in some form, whether it's on a computer, your phone, write it down in a journal. I want you to do a day in review for 2 weeks. And I want you to write down things you're feeling, things you experienced, things you fulfilled, things you did not fulfill. Have it all there so that you can look back on it and understand and draw associations and understand trends in your own life. Then I want you to make a mantra and I want you to write it down. So it doesn't have to be immediately. Maybe you have to experience a couple days to really think about what gets you going. Um, so consciously think about this mantra, this idea of a mantra as you experience your life over the next week or two, and get it on paper. Make it something important to you. And I'm honestly right now, as I'm talking about this, I'm trying to think of my own because I kind of know what it is, but I've never really like actually phonetically spelled it out on paper before. But it looks a little something like a previous episode I talked to you about, where I see my future self, and instead of my mantra being like a thing I say to myself, like a Nate Karam is speaking to Nate Karam now. No, it's like future Nate Karam speaking to now Nate Karam. My mantra is my future self telling me, pick your ass up. We've got work to do. Or more importantly, you've got work to do because look at me, buddy. Look how cool and awesome I am. You want to be me? You want to get to this point? Do the work. Stop complaining. Do the work. That's my mantra. You know, and it works for me. So, actually, I think I said I wasn't going to tell you my mantra, but I just did. So now you know. But make your own. Make your own. Whatever drives you. For me, it's just that image. I talked about that in the invisible barrier stuff. Well, I see my future self every time, and he's telling me, do the work. Do the work, man. It's gonna pay off. Look at us. Look how freaking strong we are. Bodybuilder, bilingual, physical therapist. Man, we're so cool. Well, I'm so cool, but you better do the work. So, mantra, day in review. Clarity. Find clarity in the things that you're doing. Don't let everything be such a mess. Start organizing your thoughts, start organizing your day, and it's going to change your perception. You're not going to feel so flustered all the time. You're going to have a literal guide to your own feelings and emotions. And then once you have that, it is a simple task of adjusting your perception. Once you understand what is making you feel a certain way, it is very easy to then pivot and literally just feel a different way. Like, oh, this that's completely under my control is making me feel this way and making me drag my head through the whole week. And I can change that? You're telling me I can change that consciously? Well, shit. I mean, I'm going to change it. So, yeah, that's where we're going. That's where we're headed. I just want to take a moment to tell all of you that you are doing great. You are putting in the work. It looks different for everyone, but you are doing great. You're making progress and you're self-aware. You're becoming self-aware. And I applaud you for that. It's a very brave, a very difficult task to take on, but you're doing it. And you're doing it in your own unique way. And do not let anyone else tell you that you're not putting in the work because you are. Even people who are not have zero self-awareness whatsoever, they're still putting in the work without realizing that they are. But obviously being a little more self-aware helps that work happen faster. So, yeah, I just wanted to make sure you all know you're doing fantastic. Whatever stage of life you're in, whatever, we're none of us are competing here. There's no we're on a staircase. I've talked about that before, but there's actually no second floor. So no one's ahead of you. You're not ahead of anyone else. It's just, what does your life look like at this current moment? There's going to be people that are further along this perceived path that you have that you're looking for in yourself. And you can do one of two things. You can look at them with jealousy and with, you know, like contempt and anger and want like, wow, man, why do they have these things that I don't have? Why do they get to be better than me? Or you can look at them as your mentor, potential mentors, potentially someone who can help you understand what perceptions need to be changed in order for me to reach this level that they're at, that I admire. So start asking them questions, start understanding how they got to the point that they're at, and add it to your pot, add it to your toolbox. So we are not here to compete with each other. Human beings are meant to work together. You can tell me I'm wrong, but I will firmly stand by that. We are meant to do things together. We are a cooperative society. We're supposed to be, and we do better as a whole. rather than parts. We do better as a whole. There's no debating on that. When human beings come together and work together on the same tasks and goals, we accomplish really cool things like killing mammoths and keeping each other warm in the winter, if you want to take it back to the prehistoric days. So, let's talk about two last things before I wrap up this first episode of the season. Number one, in light of what I just said, take a freaking breather, all right? You don't have to be on top of everything in your life. So, one of the most powerful things we can do as humans in our super, super media heavy, 24/7 alert, 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 everything going on, running crazy and rampant, just say, I don't know, or even I don't care. There's a lot of things in this world that you don't need to know about and you don't need to care about because they're never ever going to have any implications in your life. They're never going to affect your current mood unless you look at them and allow them to. They're never going to have any real life, real reasons. There is not an existing reason for you to have to be concerned about that thing. And if there's not, why do it? Why sit there and consume media all day, run your screen time up to 12 hours scrolling through social media for what? For like the handful of laughs that you're going to get from a video that you feel resonates with like your humor or what, I don't know. The point I'm making here is, where is the evidence that this is actually necessary? Like, are you being demanded to do these things? Like, do you have to know everything about society and global news? And like, you gonna appear smarter I like how this book says, like, what are you just doing this to appear smarter at a family dinner or something? Like, really, how much more time, energy, and brain power would you have available to you? And I'm asking you this, you particular, yes, you, the one listening. How much more would you have available if you were no longer so outraged and excited by every single breaking story, potential crisis, news story, social media, scandal, anything? How much more peace of mind would you have if you just stopped paying mind to those things? Reduce your screen time. I'll tell you that. I deleted every app except for Instagram only because I use it to post my fitness content. I don't really absorb much content anymore. I just put out. So for me, that's not really affecting me much anymore. But the amount of clarity that I derive from getting rid of all of those just constant outpouring of, you're literally overstimulating your mind. That was never a thing previously in society, and now it is. And notice how we're getting so much worse at human interaction and, face to face, like understanding, being empathetic individuals and truly like experiencing human life. We're barely doing that anymore because we see everything through a smartphone screen. So try to reduce that and see what effect it has on your own mental clarity and your interactions with other people. It's made my entire life much more positive. I will say that. Um, Another thing, probably my final point. Philosophy is supposed to be a medicine. So Marcus Aurelius here in Meditation says, don't return to philosophy as a taskmaster, but as patients seek relief in a treatment of sore eyes or dressing for a burn or from an ointment. So regarding it in this way, you'll obey reason without putting it on display and rest easy in its care. What does that mean? Well, we get super busy, right? We'll have those soft, gentle moments of, when I go on break from school, winter break, I go home and I'm just at ultimate peace, peace of mind every day, no responsibilities. My mom's cooking me dinners and everyone's happy to see me. And I'm just living life and sitting in my hot tub every night, reading my books and trying to get my life back in order. And it's a nice mental reset. But we get in a rhythm. Once life kicks back in, I mean, January, right there for me, life kicked back in. We get in a rhythm. We're being creative. We're being stimulated. We're busy. And it seems like everything's going well, but we're drifting further and further and further from those basics, the core principles that I laid out. Like, what are your principles? Put them in front of you. Write them down, put them on your wall in front of your desk so that you don't stray from them. Coaches always say, when things start going wrong, it's typically because you stray too far from the basics. Go back to the basics, do your very, very fundamental practices and you'll find yourself back where you were. But eventually, neglect will contribute to the problem, which is stress buildup. Our minds get cloudy, we forget what's important, and good judgment, good principles, good health, that is all rooted in clarity. So you need to rub off the blurry screen, clean those glasses and find your clarity. Again, it's supposed to be, stoicism is a medicine for the soul. It relieves vulnerabilities of modern life, is what this book says. It restores us with vigor. We thrive when we have vigor in life. When you have passion, vigor, like energy, true, just like there's some things that you do where you're just so passionate about what you're doing and you see how much better you do at things when you're passionate and when you have that willpower and that fight, you know, when we start losing that, it's because you're drifting from your core principles. We get so caught up in everyday life in the crazy hectic nature of the way that things work sometimes. Slow it down. Just slow it down and go back to what you know and what makes you you. And remind yourself of that every single day, even when things are at their absolute most hectic. Remind you what makes you you. Keep that constantly in mind and use this philosophy and these reflective practices as medicine. Don't go showing off to everyone that you're better than them and more self aware than them. That's not the goal of this whatsoever, is to impose yourself among other people or upon other people. Sorry. But the concept here that I'm getting at is, and I don't have the quote on this one, but I'm going to go off memory here. I recently read an entry in Meditations that I really loved, and it was about sunlight or sunbeams in particular, the nature of a sunbeam, how it extends itself upon something. It doesn't force itself, it extends and illuminates. So, sunlight is not piercing through objects. If you put something in the way of sun, it's going to stop it and it's going to cast a shadow behind it. That sunlight doesn't go through objects, but it's going to sit there and radiate it, illuminate it, rather. And that is how we should be living our lives, is extending and illuminating, not pressing, not imposing. You take your philosophy, those things that work for you, and you let it make you become a better person and change your perception and really just optimize the way that you do things and think and feel and act. And rather than going and preaching that to everyone else and making it their problem and trying to get everyone to, well, this works for me, so it works for you. No, we talked about that. Everyone's got their own working route and it might not look like yours. Maybe someone's in search for theirs. That doesn't mean you need to go shove it down their throat unless they literally ask you to do that. Illuminate people. Be a light, be a guiding light, be the lighthouse. There's a lot of lost sailors right now in the world, and you need to be the lighthouse. So take it upon yourself to figure out what works for you, figure out your own mantra, start reflecting on your days, find your clarity, and then once you find that clarity, make it useful to other people. Continue every single day, continuously exhibit those qualities in everything that you do. Don't talk about it, be about it. Think with intention, act with intention. Everything that you do should be intentional, and people will see that. And you're going to illuminate those people. You're going to extend your light onto them, and you're going to illuminate them. And they're not going to feel imposed upon. They're going to be curious. They're going to want to know what is getting you to that point, what makes you so peaceful, what helped you obtain that clarity of mind. And they're going to start picking around and doing their own little search. And next thing you know, you've illuminated somebody. You've woken them up. You lit that fire in them. Go around lighting people's fires. Make that your goal. First, light your own, but then share that fire, because that's what we're here to do. We're here to help each other, lift each other up, and work together as human beings. So help each other. I mean, come on. Do your own work and then help people with theirs. All right. If you weren't already fired up, I'm gonna make sure that everyone leaves this episode feeling vigorous and fired up and ready to go and tackle life. So, what do you do if you're contested in everything you do? What if there's always some person that tells you, "Nah, you're wrong," or "You suck, man. You're bad at everything. Why do you keep trying? Stay the course." What if every day feels like it's you versus the world? Stay the course. What if every step forward feels as though it's followed by two steps back? Stay the course. You are tested before you're rewarded to determine your resolve and the degree of that reward. If you truly want it, don't try to convince other people. Convince yourself. Stand firm in your conviction. Work as hard as you possibly can and embody your ideas and your ideals. It's not about succeeding or failing. It's about keeping the stone rolling. Are you willing to keep that rolling even on the worst days? Are you willing to be the light for yourself? Because unfortunately, not everyone's walking around with this lighthouse mindset trying to be a good role model for other people. A lot of people are terrible role models for other people, and you're going to have to be your own guiding light sometimes. It's just going to happen. So you got to do that for yourself. You've got to reach that hand down and offer it to your own self. Remember what it felt like at your darkest, lowest moment? Looks different for everybody, but remember how it felt to receive a helping hand and be offered that kindness when you felt alone. So if you need a reason to be kind today, that's it. Just because you are healed or in the process of healing does not mean that everyone around you is so fortunate. So be a guiding light for other people and offer it when it's needed. Just be kind. And, you know, you need to make peace with your past. That's a good closing point here. You want to talk about important perception? Nothing needs to be negative if you don't make it negative. Nothing is actually negative until you make it negative. Today is a chance to be a new person. Today is a chance to reignite your principles. Today is a chance to amend and fix those things that are going on in your life that you now recognize because you're self-aware and you're reflecting are inhibiting you from being the person that you want to be. And tomorrow, that's another chance. And actually, the day after that, that's another chance too. And the cycle goes on and on and on and on. Your principles are there. So light them back up. Light that fire back up in your heart. Find that passion. Find that vigor. Live life like it's meant to be. You're alive. Anyone told you that this week, that you're alive? That's a privilege. So start acting like it. Start understanding what it means to be alive. Go outside. Be in nature. Feel sunlight. Let it extend on you. Extend your light on other people. See the things that are there for you to see that no one wants to look at. Go outside and look at the birds and look at the squirrels and watch everything going on around you and understand, like, you are literally surrounded by abundant life. So be your own abundant life. And, closing remarks here, the most important thing you can do in your life is align your actions with your words. When the mind is in congruency with the tongue, you become whole. You're not just a bunch of scattered parts anymore. If you're going to speak, speak with purpose. If you're going to act, act with purpose. All those words and actions are supposed to root from the same purpose there. That's what makes you whole. That's what makes you a functioning unit. And that's what makes you true to your own word. And you start to believe in your own self because you understand what it means to keep promises to yourself and how important that is. You should live by your word and become so aligned with yourself that you demonstrate your values without any need to talk about them. You just be it. Don't talk about it, be it. I mean, talk about it to yourself and to your friends or whatever, but don't go broadcasting all these things you want to be to people without actually taking the steps to assess and act that way. You've got it, man. You've got it. You've got it in you. You've got it in you right now, and it's ready to come out, and you're just holding it back. Why are you holding back? Just do it. Man, do it. Capitalize on every single moment and do it. Reignite your passion. Now is the time. On that note, we're going to wrap up today. This is a pretty long episode. I guess from now on, I would expect that all of them are going to end up somewhere between 45 minutes to an hour. I'm not going to give a specified time, but I think that that's a pretty reasonable time frame for me to get a lot of my thoughts out here and, create a comprehensive, flowing episode. But had a lot of fun recording today. I'm glad I got in here because, man, I had a lot to say. And I just want to, again, reiterate, if you don't have it, we've got required reading materials here. All right. So The Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday, you're going to recognize a lot of the stuff I'm talking about in here if you have this book. It's really fundamentally changed the way that I live my life and the way that I think and perceive things. And then, of course, the way I act on things and my willpower as a whole. A lot of it has stemmed from this book. And this book has allowed me to branch out and explore a lot of other Stoic resources and understand truly what it means to pursue Stoicism relentlessly with passion. Passion, guys. We got to be passionate about things we do, because if you don't have purpose and you don't have passion and you're not doing things with urgency and with a timeline, you're cheating yourself. All right. If you want to climb to your goals and climb to your goals fast, purpose, passion, urgency, get it all there. So, anywho, it's been fantastic talking to y'all today. I hope you got something out of this episode. And my mom actually brought it to my attention that a couple times now I've said, thank you for watching. Yeah, my mistake, Mom. Thank you for listening. I understand you guys can't see me, but sometimes it feels like you can because there's a camera right in front of my face in the studio. But anyway, I have no idea how to work that thing, and God knows if I'll ever actually try. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you all have a fantastic morning, afternoon, night, whenever you're watching this. Please don't be afraid to hop in there and drop a follow on the channel, drop a rating. We got 22 people now, 22 kings, queens who dropped a 5-star rating on the channel. Love that. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. And just want to flex real quick that we're at like 5,000 listens or something. Sick. I mean, freaking awesome. Let's keep up that engagement. Let's boost it even higher. The more people I get to illuminate, the better, right? So illuminate other people by sharing this podcast with them. Share it around. Send it to your friends if you like it. But yeah, I hope you all have a fantastic week and a fantastic next week, because I won't be talking to you for another 2 weeks. But hopefully when I come back, I'm going to have a really cool, interesting guest here. So let's see how that goes. But yeah, you have been listening to the PT Cubed podcast live from the recording studio at the UNF library. Thanks for listening. Take care, guys. Love you all.